Hi everyone, Aidan here at the Trailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hollywood Racks Destination e-bike rack and seeing how it fits on the back of our 2021 Nissan Rogue. This is going to be a platform style bike rack, which means that the bike sits on top of this tray, and this one is held in by the frame. We've got a clamp up top holding onto our frame wherever it fits best. It can rotate around 360 degrees and move around the mast here to adapt to different frame styles, so a good option for alternative frames. And with a 70-pound weight capacity, it's going to be able to handle some e-bikes too, even some of the heavier ones. Now, where this bike rack really excels, in my mind, is the ease of use. There are a lot of touch points to do things like folding the rack up against the vehicle, but it works exceptionally well as an e-bike rack because of how easy it is to tilt away and gain access to the back of your vehicle, and because of the included ramp. And we'll touch on that in just a second. The first thing I want to do is check out the tilting, because the way it does this is very unique. Now, the mast is located behind the bikes, and at the bottom of the mast, there's going to be a hand knob. Let's loosen that up just a bit and just push it out of the way to release the mast and push the whole rack away. Now, because of the point of rotation, it centers the weight up over the rack really nicely, and it's very easy to do. Some other racks can get pretty difficult to tilt away because they just feel very heavy with all that weight coming down on you. From here, you can do it so the rack is going away from you, and we get great access into the back cargo area of our Nissan Rogue. Plenty of room to get things in or out, and just have a place to sit down and maybe change our shoes before or after our ride. Whatever we need to do, we can do it without having to unload our bikes first. That's a great time to point out the ramp. This doesn't store on the bike rack, but you can keep it in the back of your vehicle so it's ready to go when you need it. I'm going to set that to the side for now, and we can lift the rack back into place. Again, very easy to do, one-handed. We obviously don't have it fully loaded right now, but it is easy to do nonetheless. Tighten that hand knob back down, and you can see it's not going anywhere. You do get a pretty strong hold on the bike for this rack too. You've got that frame clamp like I showed you before. Not the best option for carbon frames because it is more fragile and frame contact can damage it, but for everything else it'll work just fine. It's lockable too, so that's great. But we've got 3 straps at the bottom, 2 for our front tire and then 1 for the back tire. Now 2 in the middle here pull the bike down and in, which create this really stable hold, and that secondary strap on the front tire keeps it from rotating back and forth as much, and it keeps it cradled in. While we're here, let's get this strap undone. You can do that just by pressing the button on the other side of the strap. I'll show you right here on the other tray where you can see it a bit better. Just push that in and pull the ratcheting strap out. So we'll do that for all 3 of our currently used straps. And I'm going to take the time to set the ramp up now. It's important to note that the ramp only works on one side of the bike rack, by the rear, because you've got that secondary strap at the front tire. So just expand the ramp out by loosening the hand knob and pulling it apart. The oval shaped hole will line up with an oval shaped stud on the rack and just sit there like that. So since we've got a wall in our way right now, I'll just show you by moving the bike over, but it's very easy to use. The hand knob on the clamp will loosen it up, rotate it out of the way, and if you have the ramp set up, all you'd have to do is wheel it down. Obviously we'd be backing the bike up rather than wheeling it down like this, but you could always just set the ramp up on that outer tray and use it for both bikes. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. And it's nice because you don't have to lift the bike up as much. Especially if we're getting close to maxing out the weight capacity, 70 pounds is a lot to lift up. And if you can make that job easier by just using the ramp that comes with the rack, that's great. I will say, this isn't the only bike rack that comes with a ramp. You might be familiar with the Yakima on-ramp. That one's nice because the ramp does store on the rack itself, so you don't have to worry about forgetting it, but I don't think it's as nice of a ramp. It's not as wide and not as stable. So for me, this one's a little bit of a better fit. I always like to replace these straps when I'm done just to keep them secure. And at this point, we can get a few measurements. We're going to start with the ground clearance. The lowest point is actually on the sides because of this reverse U-shaped design. And that ground clearance at the back end is going to be 15 inches. The hitch does sit pretty low to the ground on your Nissan Rogue, but you do get a good rise out of the shank here, and I think 15 inches is more than enough. Shouldn't have to worry about it too much on steep driveways and hills. And we can see how far this sticks out from the back of the vehicle. Going from the bumper to the furthest point out, we're going to be sitting at 27.5 inches. For a 2-bike rack, that's going to be pretty solid. But we can save some space by folding it up against the vehicle when it's not in use. Just leave it in the hitch until it's ready to go for next time. To do that, we'll have to first fold down the mast. This is going to be where we start to see more of those touch points. A rubber strap and a hand knob or a lever on both sides to release the mast down. The levers are going to be the thing that really locks it in, keeps it from popping up. The straps are just to make sure that those levers don't open on their own or get bumped into. Then we can turn our attention down a little bit closer to the hitch where you've got this pin and retaining clip that can get pulled out, fold the rack up, and reinsert that pin through the newly aligned holes at the bottom, where it'll keep it locked in this folded position. So overall, not too bad, but some people down in the shop here aren't super big fans of it. And what you get as a result of folding it up is a much more compact state, only sticking out 11.5 inches now. It's a lot easier to drive around with and to pull into parking spots. But you might be noticing it does come close to the vehicle. We've had this issue with a lot of different bike racks on the Nissan Rogue today, and that's just clearance because the hitch does sit recessed under the bumper a bit more. So bike racks are going to come a bit closer. At its closest point, probably being right here at the bumper, is going to be 2 inches of space, which isn't a lot, and there is a little bit of movement in the pivot position here, the point of rotation. But honestly, it's not too bad. I don't think you'll have to worry about vehicle contact. And the nice thing is that point that it would make contact on is plastic rather than paint. So we're not going to be risking any scratching there. It's going to be a little bit more durable. Moving on down the rack, we're going to see that it's fitting with our 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube, and it has this stopper block integrated into it. So you insert it into the hitch until that stopper hits. We pass the standard hitch pin through the hitch pin hole and use this anti-rattle device to actually bind that hitch pin against the hitch pin hole. It's a little bit different way of doing an anti-rattle device, but I like it a lot better because we're not risking cross-threading an anti-rattle bolt. And it's a lot easier to set up because you just put it in until it hits and you know it's going to be aligned. Plus, that pin is locking, so we don't have to worry about anyone messing with it. And it's key to those hand knobs up top, so everything's secured under one system. And as far as the destination e-bike rack goes, I think it's going to be a pretty solid option. With the Nissan Rogue, you're going to run into some things like that close clearance, and because it's a bit more bulky, license plate and backup camera isn't as visible in this folded position. In fact, it's pretty much completely blocked, so you can't use it as well as you would with some other options. And for that, you might consider something like the Yakima on-ramp, but I do think this is a better fit overall because it sits a little further from the vehicle in the unfolded position, it gets the bikes further away from your back glass, and it's easy to operate. That'll do it for our look at the Hollywood Racks Destination e-bike rack on our 2021 Nissan Rogue. Thanks for watching.